Welcome to the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. My name is Jeff Bronner, and I'm joined by Andrew Kraft and Corey Akins. Today, we're going to be talking about required minimum distributions, RMDs, and why they're important and why you should know about them. Andrew and Corey, how are we doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Andrew?
I too am well. I'm excited on this beautiful fall day to be talking about this subject.
Absolutely. It's an exciting subject.
Yes.
Important.
Said.
That's right. Important and exciting. So let's start off with defining RMD. What is a required minimum distribution?
Yeah, it's a distribution that's small and required.
Short and sweet.
So
I hope that's helpful, listeners.
Retirement plans that have been growing tax advantaged, I'll say, either pre-tax contributions or with pre-tax contributions, and then growing tax deferred. So Uncle Sam has not been able to tax it yet. It comes to a point in time where the government says, I want some of that. And they force the account holder to distribute some funds and pay taxes on it.
Yeah. The IRS just forces you to withdraw each year once you reach a certain age. And that's their way of kind of getting their cut, so to speak, right?
What is that typical age? When should people expect required minimum distributions to be exacted?
Good question, because it's been changing. And then it also kind of depends on what type of account it is, right? So the normal age has been 70 and a half. That's been, for a while, but a few different pieces of legislation have changed that. I think you said Secure 2.0 was one of them, but it's been pushed back to 75 as the oldest age, but it there's a range that you have to start taking these distributions. Now it's 73, I think.
Yeah.
Correct, that is.
And Corey, I think you had a handy rule of thumb on the ages.
Handy rule of thumb. That's funny. Yeah. So if you're born before July 1st, 1949, you're already taking it because it was 70 and a half. Born between 1951 and
keep listening.
1959, yeah. It's 73. So we're kind of in that period right now. If you're 73, you're taking it, should be taking it this year. And then 1960 or later, it's going to be age 75 for you. So
all of us are in the same boat then.
Yeah.
Until they change it again.
Yeah, until they change it again.
Right.
Secure 3.0 or 2.5.
Or 2.2.
Yeah,
or 2.25.
But you could also be, let's say, 52 and taking RMDs.
That's
right?
exactly
Why is
right.
that, Andrew?
Because you could have an inherited
IRA. Yeah, because for instance, say that you have a parent that passes away and they were taking RMDs at the time. When you inherit that account, you have to continue taking those required minimum distributions. And that coincides with the same 10-year rule that you have to liquidate that account over 10 years or by the end of the 10th year. So it can get a little, convoluted a little bit with the understanding there. But if they were taking their required minimum distributions, you also have to continue that each year.
I think we may have touched on this in one of the Common Mistakes podcasts, but people inherit an account, and generally the 10-year rule, which is also a newer one, folks know about that. We got to empty it out within 10 years. But what you're pointing to is another mistake that some people
It's a
don't.
both and, right? Because you've got to liquidate it within those 10 years or by the end of the 10th year, but you also have to take the RMD. And the standard operating procedure from the IRS has not been super clear on that, but it's always better, I think, to err on the side of caution with the IRS if you can.
And to just touch on the point of why, and then we'll talk about penalties and all of that are involved with RMDs. But going back to the point you were making, Andrew, at the top, these are traditional pre-tax accounts.
Right.
These aren't your Roth accounts. These aren't your after-tax brokerage accounts. These are your 401k, traditional dollars, your IRA, your 403b that you put in, and it lowered your taxable income when you invested it, which meant you weren't taxed then, but when you do draw it out, you will be taxed when you draw it out. So if you have those types of assets, those are the ones that are going to be subject to RMD. required minimum distributions when you turn the RMD age. Now, what happens if you don't do it? What happens if people turn 73 this year and they forget about it, or they decide not to do it, whatever the reason may be? What happens then?
Real quick, before we unpack the penalty, what you just said reminded me, because it's an important point, the type of account it is. And these traditional employer retirement plans, if you're actually still employed and over that age, you can delay that RMD. Yeah. So just want to kind of mention that.
You can do that in your employer plans, not your IRAs.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
So like you could be working, have a 401k, be 73 this year. You don't have to take anything from your 401k, but you do still have to take stuff from your RMD from your IRA.
Right. Yeah, well put. Yeah. So the penalty, if you do miss it, if you're supposed to take it, if you had separated from service or retired and you have a traditional
IRA,
401k or IRA, I get choked up about this topic. The penalty, used to be one of the most harsh the IRS would levy is 50% of what you had to take out. But CPAs would also let me know that it was the most forgiven. You just kind of beg for forgiveness and they waive it. You make sure you take it quickly. But that's been changed also with recent legislation.
Yeah, 25% now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 25% of the amount that you are required to distribute. That's the penalty if you do not distribute it. But again, it's a similar trend. But overall, we want to avoid it. We don't even want to have to ask for forgiveness. We want to just abide by the rules and make sure that we're
absolutely
in good standing. So let's talk about some of the strategies to help clients as they move closer and closer to RMD age. What are some things that we can do to help mitigate required minimum distributions and to put them in a more favorable position?
Yeah, the first one that comes to my mind is Roth conversions. So you have those traditional 401k or traditional IRA, and you, over time, say you retire in your early 60s, 62, and your RMD doesn't start for another 11 years. You've got 11 years that you could, little by little, siphon out the traditional assets into a Roth. And the great thing about Roth dollars is there's no RMD for Roth IRAs. And so it can stay in the market longer. And when it's passed down to your children, there's no RMDs for them then. They'll have to take it out over 10 years. But at that point, it kind of eases the tax burden and liability. And it's a little bit more efficient that way. So that's one way to help mitigate those and kind of control when you take it and how much tax you're paying and all that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a great strategy to help kind of walk around the tax brackets as they change and make sure you're filling up that lowest bracket. And then another one that we help our clients do a lot are qualified charitable distributions or QCDs. And so if you are charitably minded and you're giving money to a 501c3 or some charitable organization, you can have the IRA. And this is only from traditional IRAs. So workplace plans don't allow this. So you need to roll those funds to an IRA. And the funds go directly to that institution and avoid taxes whatsoever. And that legislation used to be tied to the old RMD age. So you could start that at 70.5 and it would count toward the RMD. Well, the RMD age, as we mentioned, has been going back, but the QCD stayed at 70.5. So you can start doing that at that age and reduce the amount that you have in your account. And then the amount that we'll talk about in a second that you have to take out, it will be lower at that point. So,
and there's other strategies too, like aggregating RMD limits across different accounts and whatnot. We don't have to necessarily
taking from one account over another. Yeah,
right. And
great point.
There are good strategies to construct there, and that's something that we do with a lot of clients. And we talk a lot about
that strategy just in general, Jeff. I've done that with a lot of clients where they may have two IRAs and one was set up in kind of a set rate annuity and it's getting like 2%. And then they have another IRA that's the larger of the two and it's got a better interest rate. Well, it makes sense to allow that one with a better interest rate to continue to accumulate, right?
Right.
And instead of taking from the bigger one, you just take from the one with the less interest rate.
Right.
And you're able to satisfy the RMD from one account for the two.
Right.
That's a great point.
And just depending on where the market's at in the year, you might want to take from the other account because the market's doing really well. Absolutely. And you realize some of those gains and take advantage of that. And the other part of it too is, if you're looking at that strategy or not looking at that strategy, how much do we need to take out? And that is a that is a moving target,
Yeah.
but typically it starts in the realm of 4% that first year, and then it gradually floats up as you get older and older with the theoretical goal of depleting the account before the expected or the life expectancy tables. And that's the equation where RMD distributions are calculated from.
Yeah.
So that aggregation strategy you're talking about, you have 4% of a traditional IRA, 4% of maybe your old 403B, 4% of an old 401k, 4% of another IRA. You have to take it from each like account, right? So the 2 IRAs you have, you can maybe take them from one, but the others have to take it from those specific accounts. Yeah. That's another kind of strategy you can use to make sure you're consolidating.
And all of that lends itself to the point to not put this off to the last minute.
Right.
Right? Because if you say you do have 3, 4, 5, 6 different accounts and you're like, oh, well, I've read something online that says I can take it from one. And it's like, well, yeah, you can in some sense, but like a 403B and a 401k, you've got to take it from those.
Classified separately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So don't wait till December 20th when everybody's kind of getting ready to shut down for the rest of the year to try to get it knocked out. Like it needs to I always tell people, October's a great month. It's before the holidays, gives you a little Christmas money in your pocket. Like that's a good time to do your RMDs and set it up automatically to where you don't have to think about it again.
Well, and that also leaves the money in the account, a longer period of time to continue to grow. Another alternate and fine way is to just take it out monthly. And each, I guess January, they'll calculate that, starting at 4%, like you said, Jeff, and then increasing based on the end of year balance. And they just divide that by 12 and they send it to you each month. And so it's kind of additional stream of income.
Yeah.
And regardless of how you end up taking it, the important thing to consider is that this is incumbent upon the individual who owns the account. That's where the responsibility lies.
Yeah.
However, if you're not working with an advisor who's helping you navigate this is certainly something that you should be talking about and should have a strategy that will help you achieve this goal of making sure you're avoiding this penalty, but also navigating it as tactfully as possible.
Yeah. How to do it efficiently.
Right. And so if that's any of our listeners now, if you want to hear more about ways you can optimize your required minimum distributions, we'd be happy to sit down with you. Or if you know a loved one or somebody that you care about who needs to have this conversation, have them reach out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sojourn Wealth Management Podcast. This is a friendly reminder that all content in this podcast is intended for educational purposes alone. Nothing in this episode should be treated as tax, legal, or investment advice. We encourage you to consult your financial professional for any of those needs. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Sojourn Wealth Management, LLC.